The singleton pattern is one of the earliest patterns that you learn in game dev, but it gets overused and it creates tight coupling in places that you really don't need it. So in this tutorial, we're going to refactor an existing singleton setup that triggers when a key is picked up to instead use an event bus system. All right, let's talk a little bit about theory. Now, a singleton is going to give you a global instance of a class, and anyone in your project can reach into that class directly, which makes it convenient because you don't have to pass any references around or do any setup. But every class that calls it now has a hard dependency on that exact class. If you rename a method or really change anything with that singleton, you're going to chase down every single call site to fix it. An event bus flips it into a broadcast. Instead of calling a specific class, the publisher is just going to raise an event and anyone that's subscribed hears it. It's like shouting over a microphone in a crowded room. Those who care to react will handle their own logic, and those who don't are just going to tune it out. The first thing that we're going to do is the event interface, which is a contract that every one of our events is going to implement. Now you'll notice that it's pretty empty. There's nothing here that we're specifying in terms of method or data because each event needs to have the freedom to do that depending on what the event is. The next interface that we're going to do is the one that the system that wants to listen to an event will implement. In this case, the T just defines this as a generic, and that allows us to fill in the actual event type later instead of locking that down now. Don't worry if this doesn't make sense. You'll see it in action in a second. Next, we're going to create the actual gameplay event bus, which is a static class so that anyone can call it from anywhere. The dictionary maps an event type to the listener list, and there are 3 static methods. Register as a new listener, unregister removes one, and then raise will call on gameplay event on every single listener for that event. Now, it uses a snapshot copy to keep the iteration safe if something registers or unregisters mid-dispatch. Okay, now let's add the first event, which is going to get raised when a new item is collected. It's going to inherit from iGameplay event, and then in this case, there's 3 pieces of data that I want to have sent with the payload. The actual item data, the location of the item in the world, and the quantity or the amount that was actually picked up. Okay, in this project, I have a pickup interactable mono behavior that lives on any game object that I want the player to be able to pick up. When a pickup happens, I'm calling inventory manager Singleton directly. Instead, we can decouple these two by raising the item collected event, is frankly, the pickup interactable doesn't really need to handle communicating to any of these systems directly. I could also replace the audio manager Singleton, but that setup is actually a little more complicated in this project, so I'm going to skip that for now. Now, the last thing to do in this script is to remove the check in can interact for the inventory manager because it just doesn't need to care anymore. Okay, so there's going to be 2 listeners that we're going to have in this project. The first is inventory window, which is kind of a net new thing. I'm not refactoring anything here. It's going to implement the listener interface for item collected event. And then for the event itself, it's just going to do a try return item that already handles adding the icon to the inventory. It's going to register and unregister that through the Unity lifecycle. The last place that we're going to register this is with the inventory manager. Now, this class is just a stub right now that prints a message to the console. In my next tutorial, we're going to go over using the factory pattern to hook this up so that we have a full workable runtime inventory. In the meantime, though, for the event bus, we're going to follow the same flow that we just did. Add the iGameplay event listener with the type item collected event. And it is worth noting that you can do multiple events for a class. Just separate out each iGameplay event listener with a comma and register your new type. Now, of course, we still need to register and unregister the listener with the gameplay event bus. And then with this, we can just move the logic from on item collected into the event itself and fix up the parameters so it's pointed in the right spot. Of course, it helps if I can type correctly. And then actually, we don't need this to be a singleton anymore, so we can go ahead and get rid of all of this other logic as well. All right, so before I show you this in action, I do want to show you how the Unity setup works. So I have my keyring, which is what we're going to pick up, and you can see that there's a pickup interactable mono behavior that lives on this. This is that script that's going to raise the event saying, hey, I've been collected, anyone who cares. Now, on it, it has the item data, which is a scriptable object, and then it specifies the amount that the player gets when picked up. Now, this is the same scriptable object type that we did in the inventory course for Unity 6.3 and UI Toolkit, just set up to have a key on it. Now, if we go ahead and push play, I can walk the player up towards those keys, just over here. And then before I pick it up, I'm going to show you the inventory so we can see that it gets added in because that was that other listener that we did. So two things happened. Down at the bottom, we can see the console log, which was the inventory manager. And then in the inventory UI, we can see that it pulled the bedroom keys along with all of the tooltip data that was defined in that scriptable object showing up. That is it for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. And if you found this helpful, please make sure to subscribe, toss a like, and leave a comment letting me know. All of that really helps the channel out. And I'll see you next time.